Hello. Welcome, everyone. I'm Cory Lebson. I'm here with Chris Notter. Amanda cannot be with us because, well, work gets in the way this week for her. But we're very excited to be here and be here for another week of Sticky Notes chat. So, basically this time we are going to be discussing something special, usability. It's World Usability Day. We'll talk about that in a moment. But this year's theme is actually artificial intelligence, AI. So we're going to talk a little bit about, what does that mean? How does that impact us? Largely a speculation, to be sure, but
Oh yeah, we're world experts on the UI of AI. No,
yeah.
nope,
Yeah,
not
there
happening.
might be some experts out there, but not us.
Yeah,
But there's a lot to think about, just kind of AI and the impact on us as UX professionals. And kind of all that new stuff we're going to have to think about and such. Um, so yeah, so I mean, but I want to start, just by mentioning, to those of you who are watching live, definitely feel free to put in your thoughts and comments and feedback about your experiences with AI and about your kind of, I guess, thoughts, speculation, concerns, and such as we're going. And of course, if you want to find us, you can certainly follow all of us on LinkedIn, which you should do anyway, because then that way you will get this stream wherever it appears. All three of us, that is the two of us that are here, and Amanda Stockwell as well. And then that way, as we rotate the stream, today it's on my feed, but tomorrow it could be on, not tomorrow, but next week it could
next
be on
week.
Chris or Amanda, and we'll just keep rotating. So
Yep.
do follow us all. You can also find us on Twitter at Sticky Notes Chat. You can find us you can email chat at stickynotes.chat. And that will go to all of us. And am I missing anything? And the website,
Oh
of
yeah,
course.
I've got a website.
Website, stickynotes.chat. You can find the old episodes and all that good stuff, as well as what's up for the next week, every Thursday. Um, Okay, so with that, let's talk a little bit about. Well, so first of all, let's just mention it's World Usability Day. Why isn't it World UX Day? Because I think that might be the first question people have. As old UXers used to be known as usability people, and it's usability with the big U, maybe, where usability really, for certainly for the first part of my career, for the first chunk of my, first many years, usability was what we mean by UX. It wasn't, as people think today, oh, usability is usability testing, or something like that. No, usability really meant UX as we think about it. It was the term people would use. I want it to be usable. I want good usability, and that was the umbrella concept. My job title in days past was actually usability engineer, the engineer
Yes.
part.
Oh yes.
That was kind of funny. It makes me laugh now. But yeah. So Chris, what are your memories of
Oh,
usability?
oh, did you want me to reminisce a bit? Well, I remember Jacob Nielsen's first kind of popular book was Usability Engineering. It was like it was the book was like, oh, how do we engineer usability into a system? It's like all of a sudden we're putting ourselves on par with people who have engineering degrees. Okay, that's interesting. My degree's in psychology, but no, it was a term that people used, and it was a good one because it was easy for people in the business to think about that word and say, oh yeah, I want some of that. I want my product to be usable. I want usability. And so that made us kind of more loved at that point, I think, especially when we were starting out trying to convince people that this was actually something that they did want and did need.
It's a thing.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, back then I remember doing a whole bunch of fighting about usability and how people should be incorporating more of it. And then we got into arguments about usability versus utility, and there's all these other kind of splits and stuff. And then I think UX also takes into account a lot more the design side of things, whereas usability was much more well, no, usability was also interaction design and stuff as well, but there seemed to be designers and usability engineers, and now UX is this kind of broad term where people could have skills in both or could specialize in user research more or in the design side of things more.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, as we're talking about usability and World Usability Day, I will say, if it was created today, if it was started today, it'd probably be called World UX Day. But really, it's kind of it has some legacies, has some history, and yeah, so that there we are. But in many interesting themes through the years, it's been going on for many years. Don't remember when it first started, but. But yeah, so artificial intelligence, the UX of artificial intelligence, like I said before, we're not AI UXers per se. However, there's certainly, I think, a lot to think about, with how AI maybe is starting to impact us now,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately, how it's going to impact us and our jobs, going forward.
Mm.
Um, is it impacting us right now? I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I mean, it is as well. I mean, personally for sure, but
yeah.
professionally,
I, I got a feeling that it's at the moment it's kind of insidious. Well, it might even carry on being that way. But for instance, professionally, I mean, well, it's impacting us all the time. Let's think about some examples of artificial intelligence being used. Voice interfaces is one. Games are starting to use it as well. Places where you see recommendations of, oh, you like this, you might like these things. A lot of that is using machine learning, if not full-on neural network, artificial intelligence. Um, Tagging photos with people's names. A lot of that's happening based on machine learning or artificial intelligence. Um, Places where it's impacting us in our careers is now there's companies out there who will uh, offer companies the capacity to screen their potential job applicants before they even talk to them, either by doing an interview where you talk to a computer, or by screening resumes. And that's often using artificial intelligence to pull out, or machine learning to pull out some of the traits that they're looking for to see how well this person might match. There's some issues with that because match what? Match the current organization? Is that the best thing that you should be doing? So yeah, there's potential for bias to creep in a lot of this stuff too. So yeah, there's definitely some places where you might want to think about some negative impacts as well as positive impacts, or potential negative impacts as well as positive impacts.
yeah. I mean, I guess it's probably fair to say there's some bias now, in terms of careers and hiring
Mm-hmm.
and such like that. There's a natural proclivity towards I want people like me,
Yeah,
however me is defined
right.
as a hiring manager. I want
I
people
don't want
like.
to feel uncomfortable in the interview. If I feel, and I mean, I often have thought about, wow, oh, this person's making me feel uncomfortable. That's probably a good thing because
Right,
if they're thinking differently than me, that means they're not just going to say the same things as me all the time. But yeah, it can be uncomfortable. You're right.
right. I mean, so
Yeah.
so certainly that exists, and so the idea that you know if AI is coded to look for certain keywords in
Mm-hmm.
a resume
Mm-hmm.
and pop those out, you know maybe that's more biased. Maybe it's also less biased too. If you're looking at the language of the resume
Yeah.
versus like the touchy feely feeling of oh, I'm uncomfortable.
I'm not convinced that the sales tag for this stuff should be less biased than you are. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I'd hope that we could get to a point where it has no bias, but depending upon the training data you use for any kind of machine learning systems, they are going to be using that training data as their corpus. And if that training data has some unconscious biases in it, like you used your existing staff as the group, or all the resumes from your existing staff, it's probably not going to give you a lack of bias. It's going to give you a bias. Whether that's a good or a bad one is up to you to decide.
right. No, for sure. I mean, and there is something to be said too for if we look at everyone's resume and we see these software products,
Mm-hmm.
and this person has these software products.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that bias is probably okay because
Right,
that means our company probably uses these software products, and
right.
therefore it's a good thing. If it's something a little more intangible, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, major in college or
Mm-hmm.
or something, or or even geography,
It could
like
be geography. It could be, yeah. It
or
could, yeah.
whatever, or dress or whatever,
Mhm.
then yes, yes, for sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think, I think, as we go forward, yeah, just kind of thinking through, like you say, those biases and what makes sense and such. But I think there's also kind of broadening that out a little bit. It really kind of talks about our careers because it's not just the resumes or such, but the jobs that we do. As a UXer, I'm constantly like self-evaluating. As a researcher,
Mhm.
am I saying a biasing statement? Am I making assumptions that I shouldn't be making? Maybe I'm making assumptions that I need to be making to modify a script to match, for example. I notice that their vocabulary is their vocabulary appears to be smaller, and my script uses some big words. Maybe I need to modify that and not, on the fly. So some assumptions I think, not necessarily bad.
As long as you can have a conscious understanding of what those assumptions are. I think one of the problems with a lot of the AI systems is that they are black boxes. Um, I mean, an example. I was watching a interview slash documentary with one of the guys who was responsible for creating Forza Racing, which is a car racing game.
Yeah.
And they use artificial intelligence for some of the other cars that are in the game, and they try to make them match actually what some of the other competitors you might be competing against would not how those people would normally drive. Some are more aggressive, some are less aggressive. What they found was that they were happy with what the AI did, but sometimes it just did these crazy things that were completely out of the blue, like smashing into other cars or stopping in the middle of the track or stuff like that. And they couldn't. They had no understanding why, because it's a black box. So they ended up putting rules on top of what the AI was doing to damp down what it was doing. So yeah, sure. If you're making conscious adaptations to things, that's one thing. If you're having to slam rules on top of your AI output because you just don't know why the hell it's doing what it's doing, yeah.
Then, I mean, I guess it goes back to, us as UXers, what do we do? I mean, so from the research side, I'd say we have open-ended research.
Mhm.
We watch people interact, and then we see how, an artificially intelligent system, how machine learning has created stuff that in this black box that we can't get at.
Mhm.
So how do we get at it? We basically, like in an ad hoc fashion, we
Yeah.
do, usability testing. We
Right.
we say, okay, we're going to throw you the potential user at the system. Just do it. But the usability testing becomes a little less structured because now
Right.
it's usability testing, but it's also almost more back to our generative testing where we're saying do whatever the heck you are going to do, speak the way you're going to speak, use whatever inputs you would do naturally, and
Mhm.
let's just see what happens because
Mhm.
we need to get at, like you say, that black box. We need to
So yeah, I mean, it is fair to say people are just as much a black box as these artificial intelligence systems are. And asking somebody to justify things, there's this term in usability or UX called post hoc justification. People are very good at coming up for justifications for what they did afterwards, which may or may not be why they actually did it. I mean, and you can kind of do the same kind of thing with artificial intelligence. You can give it enough inputs and see what the outputs are, and it's kind of giving you. You can kind of infer a justification from that just as well as you can from formative generative usability testing, where you're letting people do what they do and then inferring why they did what they did.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's actually merging the two because
Right.
you're letting the black box, that's humanity,
Hmm.
in all our human variableness. I mean, we're unpredictable, right?
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
know how are we going to phrase things, how are we going to create those inputs.
Hmm.
We can't see the black box. We
Hmm.
can't see what's inside.
Hmm.
The machine learning is too complex for us
Right.
to kind of look at it and say, oh yeah, cool, makes sense, gives answers people want, is unbiased, is meaningful, is helpful, is usable,
Right.
and to so what we have to do is kind of fire the random like inputs at it, through future research
Hmm.
and kind of see what comes out, and
So, are you
see.
thinking we should be usability testing AIs as well?
Well, not I mean, I guess that's the thing. Do a usability study with an AI? No, with some sort of artificial intelligence. But no, but really, I'm thinking we should do usability testing with people as they're using um, artificially intelligent systems
Hmm.
that have the black box of machine learning, where we don't know what's going on in its little machine head.
Hmm.
So we fire the inputs. The okay, go up to the system and try to do whatever it does
Hmm.
with it. Get in the car and hope for the best. Um, but I mean, we need to have people, and we still need to have people, in our user research to understand what's going on, what the secret really is, and how things are evolving.
I've not done this. I'd love to be involved in user research for things like voice interfaces like Siri and Alexa and Google Voice and stuff like that, because I, that's an example of artificial intelligence, that the voice interfaces are using AI elements to help process users' inputs to come up with answers. They're ones, like you're saying, these little black boxes. You're kind of humanizing, anthropomorphizing the artificial intelligence. If that's the case, these ones are still babies. They're still
Yeah.
not quite there. I mean, there's only certain things that the voice interfaces these days can do. They have different areas of expertise, but they're not all over the place yet. They can't do everything. They can't actually have a conversation quite the same as a person would quite yet.
Right. I mean, try talking on my iPhone, try talking with Siri, and oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, and you end up, and this is something that's probably is an example. We were talking at the beginning about how old we are and how we used to call UX usability. Well, back then, we were often working with command line interfaces. A lot of the stuff that I was doing in banking back then was still based on mainframes, and people had to know a set of commands in order to be able to do stuff. Guess what? We've got back to exactly a command line interface, but now it's not using a green screen and a keyboard, it's using your phone to do the same thing. You need to kind of know the breadth of commands that you can use in order to work with the interface. So I guess that's why I'm interested in doing some user testing. And I watch people using it all the time. I don't actually use voice interfaces myself that much because they frustrate me too much. But
Right.
well, I just gave up. I can type a search, uh, but the watching people using them is really interesting to see how people adapt themselves to the interface, to a voice interface, the same way as they do to GUIs or phone interfaces as well. It's kind of interesting.
Right.
Um, I kind of envy the people who have research roles in voice, for sure. If there's anybody watching who does, tell us what it's like.
Right. No, and then also, with I have a smart TV, and I thought, and it was too dim, like it wasn't bright enough.
Mm,
So I thought to myself, oh, I need to brighten the TV,
mhm.
and then I thought about going through with my remote. Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
TV, yeah,
so I
those
so I
interfaces are
used,
horrible.
so I used in the took my little remote and clicked the little, you can't see that, the little speaking button, and I said brighten the TV, and it brightened the TV,
Oh,
and
did it?
it did, yeah. And then it even said, yeah, we did it. Oh, now I'm blurry. It just reversed it here. No, there we go.
There we go.
It found my remote and all got all messed up. So so I said, oh, the speaking will be faster, and it was faster in that case because it
Mhm.
was something that I assumed that they would, that it would have. I wouldn't call that AI as much as probably there's three or four responses in there, that
Right.
were canned.
It's not doing natural language processing so much as it's got a set of responses it can understand. Yeah.
Which honestly is what Siri feels like to me.
Hmm. Hmm.
When I'm on my phone, if I happen to get the right keywords, great. But not
So,
really, not really.
somewhere right now, there's a bunch of
Yeah,
Apple engineers crying into their lattes because you just said that.
no, sorry. But I am thinking too, about like doing user research and recruiting. What matters then often is not just kind of people who might put string words together differently, but also the accents that they have.
Mm-hmm.
In the United States alone, you've got tons of dialects, much less, different ways English is spoken around the world, and then even more so people who are, let's say, speaking English. but that's not their first language. So then you've got all sorts of
Yeah.
accents and so on.
I've learned to use my fake American accent when I'm interacting with IVR systems, interactive voice response systems on American companies' phone lines. Because if I try to say it the English way, it says, "I'm sorry, I did not understand that." And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
come on, yes, but yeah, I absolutely I feel your pain there. In fact, I probably could emphasize that pain somewhat.
yeah, yeah. No, yeah, definitely. I mean, even I grew up on the East Coast in Mid-Atlantic, of the
Mm,
state, so I should have a pretty neutral accent. But even so, I get frustrated. So all the
yeah.
more so, when if I'm perhaps like the more or less the target, the target like dialect, I can imagine it's even worse when yeah. So
Yeah. Yes. And my fake American accent isn't that good, so can make my R's sound right, but that's about it. So, but that's normally enough actually to fake it to fool the systems. But yeah, so that's voice. I mean, the voice thing really interests me because it is an indication of how ungrown up these systems are yet. It's not quite there. In robotics, there's this idea of the uncanny valley where you can have something which is almost like a human being, and if it's far enough away from a human being, you accept it. If it's completely like a human being, you'd accept it. But if it's almost there, it's uncanny. And so you don't accept it and it freaks you out. Like it's trying to be human, but it's failing to be human. And I
yeah,
think we're approaching that with the voice. It's almost like you can accept it being a person on the other end doing the stuff for you, but not quite. Um, and when we get to the point where it is, I don't know if that's going to freak me out more or less, actually.
yeah. Well, I saw something recently. They're trying to perfectly replicate human eyes. That would look at you, and it looks so creepy.
Oh, is this the thing without the skin on it? They had the one
Right,
without
yeah,
skin, and
yeah.
it would raise its eyebrows, and it had all the muscle control for making the different.
Right, and had eyeballs that really looked, like they were looking at you, and
Right,
so. But well, yeah, it's almost there, but not quite. I mean, but
that's
that,
the
and
uncanny valley.
yes,
Yes,
and that's
yes,
the source for many a science fiction movie, maybe.
absolutely.
Um,
Yes.
but yeah, nonetheless, yeah,
S- so I mean, this is the whole thing about the artificial intelligence side of things is um, it's great that we can develop these systems, but I don't know how many of them are actually getting the user experience work that they might need to make them acceptable to the people who are using them. How much are we actually adapting ourselves to them, to these systems, versus the systems being what we would use by default or by choice?
yeah, yeah, and what kind of user research, what kind of UX design inputs are there? I mean, I don't know what the answer is. And I'm sure companies like Apple, like Google, I'm sure have UX teams working on this. But even so, I mean, is that always true? Is that the case? Have we evolved yet kind of the UX best practices? And
Uh-huh.
I would speculate the answer is no.
Uh-huh.
We're kind of learning as we're going, and yeah, um,
I just remembered something that from back, this would be 20 years ago. There was a group of people I think they were in the UK, who were trying to make user experience people obsolete by creating a machine learning system that would develop the perfect interface. You would tell it what you needed it to build, what elements you needed on the screen, and it would develop the perfect interface. And I think it was probably more heuristic based than it would have been like neural networks back then. And they were predicting that in 5 years' time they would have removed the need for people like you and me to be part of the system, because developers could just tell the system what they wanted and it would create their UI for them. And this is a bit like voice dictation was this thing that was going to be every 5 years. It was another 5 years out, and I still haven't seen systems, artificial intelligence systems, that can build satisfactory user interfaces. Have you seen any, Corey?
no, no. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think back to working on proposing projects where I think it was even it might have been some government agency here in the States where they wanted, like, it was kind of, maybe it was, something about measurement. How can we create code that would be able to check heuristics? Like, and,
Right.
and I really, I don't remember how far it got. I was just very involved at the very beginning of that, and this was still like 20 years ago,
Mm.
maybe more, 23, 24 years ago. And, and I mean, the answer always seemed no.
Mm.
We didn't have the ability to do that. Maybe we will to a little extent. I mean, like okay, accessibility, like web
Right.
accessibility, where there's checkers out there, and those checkers are awesome
Mm.
because they'll say there's a color contrast issue.
Hmm.
There's a looking at the rules that we have, you've got these accessibility issues, but
Mm.
oh, there's an image and there's alternative text. We don't know if the alternative text is appropriate, if it's
Hmm.
meaningful, if it applies the meaning, because we don't understand the real meaning. And AI, for example, can interpret what's in a picture,
Hmm.
some
Oh yeah,
variant,
yeah.
yes, but it may or may not be right if it creates the alternative text itself.
Mm.
And we're just not there yet, and we're not going to be for a long time. I would say. I mean, we're going to get more refined
Right.
in our tools, but we're not going to be there for a long time because that human element is only simulated. It's not
Mm.
real. Not I mean not we're nowhere near real yet.
I'd be interested if anybody who's watching has actually come across any dev tools or design tools which have an element of artificial intelligence embedded in them that's supposed to, I don't know, either create the basics of a UI of a user experience for you, or even like put things on the screen in a certain way or whatever. I'm not talking about stuff that snaps to grid or anything like that. I'm talking about building a whole interface for you based on some predetermined input that you've given it. Um, I know that Airbnb were working on something with their design system where they could give it a sketch, and it would then pull the correct elements from their design system to flesh out that sketch. And that's probably using some form of machine learning or artificial intelligence to interpret what was in the sketch and then line that up with what design elements are available. And I mean, that's getting close, right? Because yes, there's a predetermined set of elements that you're working from in your existing design system, but being able to take just a sketch that you've drawn and say, well, I think we should have like a hero image up here, and then input fields here, and then there should be, obviously a call to action and a submit and all that kind of stuff. And then just sketch that in a wireframey way or using a pen and paper, and then show that to a computer and say, build this for me. I guess in some respects, that's a technician's dream. I'm not sure that's a designer's dream, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess in the way that it could improve products, or not improve improve workflow, is if you have that sketch. So
Mm.
the designer does a sketch,
Mm.
then says, "Well, I'd like to save some time," and the system will go, "Okay, we've created an interface for you based on kind of our
Mm.
the initial understanding of your what you're looking at is this." But then it's not just like, it's an output, but it's an input now to the designer.
Right.
Okay, you just bump me forward a couple hours.
Right.
So now I can take it, thanks, I'll take it from there. In the same way, actually, like, I'm thinking of like the intern, the UX intern comes in and the designer says, do this thing for me. The intern does their best. The designer says, okay, you did great. Now what we want to do is let's think about this, and I'm going to teach you how to
Mm.
do a little bit better. Probably the AI is not, maybe it's going to be taught a little bit,
Mm.
not in a way that's going to like replace the designer,
Mm.
but certainly perhaps could help in the future. Like, oops, you made a mistake here. This one is learnable.
Mm.
Maybe you could figure out what that mistake was or why I did what I did or whatever. Some sort of like, feedback loop. In a way, like the AI is the junior intern.
Right. So, in both your scenarios there's a smidgen of wishful thinking. The first one, well, the intern one is that somebody's actually going to teach the intern something about the whole process, which is what I want to hear. It's what I want to happen. But you could just be, oh, thanks, okay. now make me a coffee, intern, and yeah, that would be sucky if you got the intern job. Pour the coffee over the designer. Um, but the other one is that people would actually use that system. Only designers would use that system rather than a company saying, "Oh, now we can sack our entire design department because this system will do it for us." So it's good enough. So yeah, that's my concern about the wishful thinking. There is that we get to the point where lay people would think that the artificially designed design was good enough, whereas designers would look at it and go, "Oh." But now you just sacked all your designers, so what are you going to do? And I think the same thing could be said for user testing. If they're getting to the point where you can use artificial intelligence to help with recruiting of people for a job role, then I mean, absolutely, you could help for recruiting usability test participants. But what when you actually then have the AI running the studies and interpreting the results from the studies? How far off of that are we? I mean, you were saying you think we're a while off of that,
Yeah,
but
well, yeah. I mean, I think I just I mean, I'm not willing to believe that AI can really understand humanity. Yeah, I mean, and maybe I'm totally off base, but um,
no, I'm not sure it's a question of whether they can understand or not. It's a question of whether people in business understand that they don't understand humanity, and whether that even makes a difference to the people in the business roles who are making the
yeah.
decisions.
I mean, it's not that it necessarily won't be used. I mean, I've
Mm.
seen, for example, in the accessibility example, I've seen these automated checkers used, and then like, oh yeah, the automated checker said it found no problems, therefore we're accessible. And you're like, well, no. What it did is it found no problems in its ability to find problems.
Mm.
However, it doesn't have the ability to find every problem.
Mm.
So, so certainly, I think the same is true here. Is that it may be true that there'll be an automated usability testing method where just give us your product, we'll write the test plan and find the people and get them and get you some output in one day. You know, we awesome. Well, but I don't think it's going to happen. No, it's not that it's not going to happen. It's not going to be useful. It's not going to be usable information back there. Keyword there.
Mm.
It's not going to be usable, really, but it doesn't mean people won't accept it as usable. Like, oh yeah,
Right.
we crossed our T's and dotted our I's because we had the automated bot run our usability testing. So
And in some respects, I guess if it was a company that wasn't, or a development team that wasn't going to be doing any user research or anything at all, then maybe that's helped. Maybe that's better. But I really can't see the salespeople for the organization that's selling this artificial usability research tool, um, uh, putting so many caveats on their system as, well, you should really have a whole bunch of real user researchers doing it. They'll be like, "Oh no, you don't need user researchers. You're fine. Our system will do everything for you." So yeah, that's where my concern lies, and especially in the early days where it actually can't. And I mean, one of the things about this is, how much experience do you build up over time? And one of the things about a lot of the artificial intelligence systems is that they've done their learning, and they're not necessarily in a position to receive feedback subsequently. So they're not going to improve over time. Whereas if you take an intern in a user research role or in a design role, that person's absolutely going to improve over time given the right inputs, and they're going to become a good designer, a good senior designer. They're going to start being a teacher of other people, and they're going to contribute more than the AI would, who's just sitting there and churning around.
yeah, and I think that goes back to the reason that I'm very optimistic when everyone's talking about AI is going to take our jobs, AI, whatever. Sure, in 100 years, every job could probably be done by, and we'll all be like sitting at the beach, relaxing, or
Come the
what.
singularity. Well, we either be sitting at the beach relaxing, or the AI will have done away with us because we're
Right,
superfluous. Right.
or we've got like the Matrix or something. But really, it's we're far off from it. We're really far off from any kind of learning that can learn so much. We'll be able to drive a car, like have our truly 100% drivable cars
Mm-hmm.
long before UX is going to disappear. Mainly because the UX, we're needed to make sure that those drivable cars are make sense and not just in their ability to understand the stop sign,
Right.
or a stoplight or a pedestrian or whatever, but really to understand our needs. Like what are we looking for? What is going to make us happy in our self-driving car? It's it's not, we're not going anywhere as UXers. We're still here for the long term. Don't worry about having to find that other, maybe other, everyone needs to come to us. Anyone who, is fearful of their jobs, being too routine, anyone who's listening, who might not be a UXer, and you're saying, oh, my job is way too routine, I can be replaced. Come to UX. We
Yeah.
need you. So,
We deal with the vagaries of human nature, which is never going to be described. So, hey, your job is safe.
yeah, yeah. I remember, what was it, Eliza? Do you remember? It was probably it was in the 90s, where Eliza the psychologist, it was a command line interface.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, and almost passed the Turing test.
yeah,
You could
yeah.
have a conversation with Elisa, and she would diagnose your problems for you. Well, no, she'd have a conversation with you about your problems, and
And
yeah,
it was so generic. It was like a horoscope, like, oh yeah, of course, this is me. You're right, you
yes,
got it. But yeah, so back in the day.
yeah. Wow. Have we exhausted artificial intelligence, Corey?
Yeah, we're done. Nothing else. Nothing new under the sun.
Conclusion: you still need us.
Right, right. It's yeah, employers, we're not going anywhere.
Mm,
UX job seekers, UXers, you're not going anywhere. We're all good.
yeah. Yeah. Some interesting roles evaluating the user experience and creating the user experience around artificially intelligent systems and the stuff that they produce.
Right, and
Um,
simultaneously, yeah. I mean, we're
mhm,
we're probably going to have many new UX jobs, going forward.
mhm.
Where we aren't even able to imagine them yet. And by the way, it's not going to be called UX because no term, from human factors to usability to user experience.
Human computer interaction.
Yes, human computer interaction. Everything. We keep changing the terminology. So I will tell you, your skills may not be called UX in 5 to 10 years. And I can't tell you what will be called, but whatever it is that we're doing, and we're just going to go with the flow and change our name as appropriate. You'll still have a job.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah,
Awesome. Hey, Corey,
yeah,
this was fun. I didn't know that we could talk about artificial intelligence for 40 minutes, but apparently we could.
yeah, yeah. It's a great topic. So thank you to the organizers of World Usability Day for
Mhm.
giving us this idea.
Yeah.
And anyone listening, we are always looking for interesting ideas, things to talk about besides our boring old stuff and so on that we might talk about. So definitely, anyone watching, if you have an idea of something you'd like to hear in the future, please do let us know, and we may incorporate it. It's that chat at stickynotes.chat, finding us on LinkedIn, individually, using our email address. Using our email address, our Twitter handle, Sticky Notes Chat. I mean, really, you can find us any which way, and let us know, what topics you would like. So with that, you can find more episodes at stickynotes.chat. I don't know what number are we up to now. This is episode
This is
21, right?
21?
21.
21.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of blabbering on about these UX topics for you to listen to, which is, of course, very exciting.
You could
Uh,
fill many hours. You could fill a whole 24-hour day almost with stuff that we've talked about.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
you need some relaxing time. Just
Yes.
listen to those old episodes. Also used to go to bed at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so certainly help spread the word, and join us for the next episode. Next week, our regular time, Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern, at 10 a.m. I always,
Yes.
yes, I get
Yes. You
it's
got it
always
right.
11 on it. It was 10
10 a.m. Pacific.
Pacific. As well as whatever time zone you may be in. We are here. We are recording. We are, around.
Awesome. Oh, it was a good one. And happy World Usability Day to everybody.
Yes, happy World Usability Day, and we will talk to you next week.